Wall made by Alexander. The Quran story describes Dulkarnain building a great barrier in order to enclose the nations of Gog and Magog, who do great mischief in the earth. A similar story about Alexander is found in the Alexander romance, and the origins of the story can be dated as far back as 329 BC. The building of gates in the Caucasus Mountains by Alexander to repel the barbarian people identified with Gog and Magog has ancient provenance, and the wall is known as the Gates of Alexander or the Caspian Gates. The name Caspian Gates originally applied to the narrow region at the southeast corner of the Caspian Sea, through which Alexander actually marched in the pursuit of Bessus in 329 BC. Although he did not stop to fortify it, it was transferred to the passes through the Caucasus on the other side of the Caspian by the more fanciful historians of Alexander. The Jewish historian Flavius Josephus, 37 to 100 AD, mentions that a nation of the Alans, whom we have previously mentioned elsewhere as being Scythians, traveled through a passage with which King Alexander the Great shut up with iron gates. Josephus also records that the people of Magog, the Magogates, were synonymous with Scythians. According to Andrew Rooney Anderson, this merely indicates that the main elements of the story were already in place 6 centuries before the Quran's revelation, not that the story itself was known in the cohesive form apparent in the Quranic account. Similarly, Saint Jerome, 347 to 420 AD, in his letter 77, mentions that the hordes of the Huns had poured forth all the way from Meotis. They had their haunts between the icy Tanais and the rude Messageti, where the gates of Alexander keep back the wild people behind the Caucasus. In his commentary on Ezekiel 38, Jerome identifies the nations located beyond the Caucasus mountain and near Lake Meotis as Gog and Magog. Thus, the gates of Alexander legend was combined with the legend of Gog and Magog from the book of Revelation. It has been suggested that the incorporation of the Gog and Magog legend into the Alexander romance was prompted by the invasion of the Huns across the Caucasus mountains in 395 AD into Armenia and Syria. Gates. Christian legends speak of the Caspian Gates, Gates of Alexander, also known as Alexander's Wall, built by Alexander the Great in the Caucasus mountains. Several variations of the legend can be found. In the story, Alexander the Great built a gate of iron between two mountains at the end of the earth to prevent the armies of Gog and Magog from ravaging the plains. The Christian legend was written in Syria shortly. The Christian legend was written in Syria shortly before the Quran's writing and closely parallels the story of Dulkarnain's. The legend describes an apocryphal letter from Alexander to his mother, wherein he writes, I petitioned the exalted deity and he heard my prayer. And the exalted deity commanded the two mountains, and they moved and approached each other to a distance of 12 ells, measuring unit of length. And there I made copper gates, 12 ells broad and 6 ells high, and smeared them over within and without with copper, so that neither fire nor iron nor any other means should be able to loosen the copper. Within these gates I made another construction of stones, and having done this, I finished the construction by putting mixed tin and lead over the stones and smearing over the whole, so that no one might be able to do anything against the gates. I called them the Caspian gates. 20 kings did I shut up therein. These sewed epigraphic letters from Alexander to his mother Olympias and his tutor Aristotle, describing his marvelous adventure at the end of the world, date back to the original Greek recension, are written in the 4th century in Alexandria. The letters are the literary expression of a living popular tradition that had been evolving for at least 3 centuries before the Quran was written. Several historical figures, both Muslims and Christian, such were Alexander's Great, and several different identifications were made with actual walls. During the Middle Ages, the gates of Alexander's story was included in travel literature such as the Travels of the Marco Polo, 1254 to 1324 AD, and the Travel of Sir John Mandeville. The Alexander Romance identified the gates of Alexander variously, with the Pass of Darial, the Pass of Derbent, the Great Wall of Gorgon, and even the Great Wall of China. In the legend's original form, Alexander's gates are located at the Pass of Darial. In later versions of the Christian legends, dated to around the time of Emperor Hercules 575 to 641 AD, the gates are instead located in Derbent, a city situated on a narrow strip of land between the Caspian Sea and the Caucasus Mountain, where an ancient Sassanid fortification was mistakenly identified with the wall built by Alexander. In the Travels of Marco Polo, the wall in Durban is identified with the gates of Alexander. The gates of Alexander are most commonly identified with the Caspian gates of Durban, whose 30 north looking towers used to stretch for 40 kilometers between the Caspian Sea and the Caucasus Mountains, effectively blocking the passage across the Caucasus. Later, historians would regard these legends as false. The gate itself had wandered from the Caspian gates to the Pass of Darial, from the Pass of Darial to the Pass of Derbent, as well as to the far north. Nay, it had traveled even as far as remote eastern or northeastern Asia, gathering in strength and increasing in size as it went, and actually carrying the mountains of Caspian with it. Then, as the full light of modern day come on, the Alexander Romance ceased to be regarded as history, and with it Alexander Gate passed into the realm of fairyland. The Caspian Gates in Durban, Russia, often identified with the Gates of Alexander, the wall of the Sassanid citadel in Durban, Russia, is often identified with the Gates of Alexander. It is the only Sassanid fortification remaining today. The Caliph Umar the Caliph Umar Raziallahu Ta'ala Anhu, as well as later Caliph sent expeditions to Durban to seek out this wall, Alexander Gates. This is the backside of Alexander's.